Hey guys, welcome back to the World's Worst Fishing. I'm Chris Jones, and today we're gonna kind of take it back to the basics a little bit. I get a lot of questions to my Instagram, to my email, YouTube comments, Facebook accounts, from a lot of people that are really new to bait making. Okay, they want to know so many things. You know, there's such a I guess there's a desire to learn about this stuff, and I appreciate all your emails and comments. Even if I didn't write you back, I'm sorry. I honestly can't respond to them all. However, I am paying attention. So this video today is more or less geared towards the beginner who wants to learn and not make as many mistakes along the way. You know, I get a lot of questions about cooking Plastisol. About mixing colors, formulas, how to not scorch your plastic, you know. So again, today's video is kind of going back to the basics, but it's all about trying to show you a few tips that I've learned along the way to, I guess, maximize your efficiency. You know, you don't want to get out into your shop and burn a cup of plastic or not cook it all the way and then your baits are gooey. Or you mix up a really great color, but you get it too hot, and then your glitter scorches, and then the glitter folds up, and the colors bleed out. And you know, the more mistakes you make, the less efficient you are. The more time you're correcting these mistakes, the less you ultimately learn. So again, this video, we're going to start from the very first, the very first step, so to speak, the Plastisol in the bucket. Okay, we're going to mix it up for you on camera. We're going to talk about why you mix, and then we're going to show you my heat process in the microwave. A lot of videos I kind of start with the plastic already cooked. Today I'm going to talk about how I cook it and a little bit why, and some very, very important mistakes to avoid when cooking your plastic that are going to cost you materials. You know, every cup of plastic that comes out gooey or that you overheat and it yellows or scorches, that's money down the drain. You don't want to do that, especially as a beginner who is spending, you know, very, very valuable money to try out a new hobby. So without further ado, let's jump on in. All right, so step number one for me, okay, I use plastic out of these 5-gallon buckets. Now you can get it out of a jug, and pretty much the same principle applies. You can even see on this sticker, mix well. So every Plastisol brand I have ever used has required this step. If I was to scoop that plastic off the top, that is like almost all plasticizer, okay? There's no resin in that. So I literally stole a spoon from the kitchen and I stir by hand. You know, I see some people out there that try to claim that dead-on plastic, especially the black bucket blend, you have to stir it till your arm falls off, and then they still come out gooey. Listen, guys, that's complete nonsense. It's all in how you cook it, really. And this is any Plastisol. You know, I've used a bunch of them. So anyway, this is how much I stir. So you can see that is probably a half full bucket. Okay. Now, if it was a full bucket, I would have to stir a little bit more. This spoon doesn't really quite reach the bottom. But if you do have a spoon that reaches the bottom, you're all good. Now, good Plastisol doesn't hard pack, so you don't have to worry about digging resin off the bottom. But quite literally, this is it. This is swim bait blend. It has a pretty good amount of resin in it. That's it. I hand stir with a spoon for 30 seconds. And there's no problems. Whatever Plastisol you're using at home, you can do the same or shake it up in a jug for 30 seconds and you're good to go. That is pretty much all there is to that. You know, the reason I think why people may have a problem with their Plastisol not coming out the way they want is cooking it, and that's our next step. All right, so some people have more sophisticated methods of doing this. I literally take a cup. Every video you've ever watched from me making lures, the Plastisol was dipped out of a bucket with this exact cup. I literally just dip it out and then I transfer it to whatever cup I'm going to actually use it from. Okay? That's it. Done. So our Plastisol is stirred. We've measured it out into our cup. Now comes what I would consider the most important part, is cooking it. So here we have my microwave. You can see I've completely done the whole skater punk on a skateboard thing and covered it in stickers. Except these are bait stickers. So anyway, you have a couple things to consider when heating up your plastic. Mainly, what size cup are you using? These are the most common sizes, okay? The 2-cup size, you'll see that that measures out to 2 cups and beyond, really, if you want it to. And then you have the 1-cup size. So this one's going to heat that Plastisol up quicker than this one. Why? Well, because the heat is more, it's kind of more directioned in a smaller place. That was a really bad way to say it. But I guess it's more concentrated, okay? The larger the cup and the more plastic, obviously, the longer you need to heat it up. So my microwave here is like a $40 cheapie from Walmart, and it's only 900 watts. There's nothing to it. So this is a 1-cup Pyrex measured out to 1 cup, all right? So then you have to determine what kind of blend Plastisol. If it's a really soft blend, then it doesn't have as much resin. It's going to cook a little quicker. This is kind of a happy medium. So for a cup that size, I want to do 2.5 minutes on my 900 water, okay? And whenever that comes out, the first, pretty much from there up, is going to be crystal clear. It's going to be cooked. But the bottom isn't going to be cooked yet. And that's really important, is to stir up that bottom and get it cooked. Okay, let's take this stuff out. So, there's what it looks like raw out of the microwave. Let me see if I can focus in on it, okay? If you look at that bottom, it's kind of hard to see it. Let me angle the camera like way down. All right. And zoom in here. Okay, if you notice, the top of it looks pretty clear, right? You can even read or see the measurements on the side of the cup. But you'll notice the bottom, there's kind of that white goo layer down there. That right there. See how it's still a little bit gooey? This Plastisol is not fully cooked. The top layer is gonna make you think that it's cooked, okay? Top layer is reading 359. Well, that just changed, but it was reading 359. However, the bottom is completely uncooked. So I need to mix this plastic up thoroughly, okay? You can see that it's still a little clumpy on the bottom. If I was to shoot that plastic just like it was then, you have to think about it. As you draw up the injector, the Plastisol from the bottom of the cup is technically the first plastic that gets shot into the mold. You're going to have gooey, messy, uncooked baits that are never going to cure up no matter what, okay? So now that I've stirred it up, that plastic's 300 degrees, okay? That's what it is. So we're going to stir that up. You see I'm stirring some bubbles into it. Now we're ready to finish cooking the plastic. That is, I think, a common mistake. I think people cook the plastic and it looks ready to go, but it really kind of isn't. So now I want to put this in for about another 45 seconds, okay? Let me zoom out here. Sorry, I'm trying to maneuver the camera so that we can see things. All right, so we're going to do another 45 seconds on that. When that plastic comes out, it's going to be ready to use. Okay, and there we have it. There's our cooked swim bait blend Plastisol. And, you know, one of the challenges is preventing overheating, overcooking, yellowing, or degrading of the plastic. And, you know, depending on who you ask or where you look, what forum you read, what Facebook group you belong to, you'll probably see a lot of things like all Plastisols are virtually the same. There's only 4 or 5 people actually making it, and just pick and choose whichever one you want to buy from. Well, you know what? They're not the same. Not all Plastisols are the same, and they're not all made for the same purposes. The needs of the home bait maker, like myself, heating it up in a microwave in relatively small quantities, is different than the need of a mass manufacturer running injection machines that heat it instantly and shoot it into the mold instantly. They're just 2 completely different worlds. The home bait maker needs a Plastisol that doesn't burn easily, doesn't require a whole bunch of heat stabilizer, relatively low bubbles or no bubbles, as low as you can get. The mass manufacturer can get away with the cheapest Plastisol possible. Just their manufacturing process is completely different than ours. We need different things. And one of the reasons why I go to Dead On Plastic is because it's user-friendly to the home bait maker like me, who's abusing it in the microwave, reheating it several times. There are some Plastisols that just simply aren't for that. My favorite brand is obviously Dead On Plastic. Great customer service. I can't say enough good things about the product. If Dead On wasn't around, I'd probably move to Plastisol. And originally Dead On Plastics was Plastisol. Now they've moved to their own proprietary manufacturer. But those 2 brands, for my money, give you the most user-friendly product for the home bait maker. So those are all things to take into consideration, and we all fight bubbles, overheating, and moisture. And moisture really is bubbles at the end of the day. You get moisture in your plastic, I don't care if your Plastisol is made by God himself, you will get bubbles. So another common mistake, or not necessarily a mistake, I don't want to make it sound negative, but another thing you want to make sure and do as a beginner in order to avoid mistakes is to really clamp your molds, okay? Now, a lot of molds come with bolts and wing nuts or something that you can screw the bolts with together. A lot of my molds still have those, but then there are some that don't have those. So for the sake of demonstration, I pulled out some molds that I took the bolts and wing nuts off of, okay? So these are going to be clamped. And clamping is absolutely important, because if you don't clamp them, you get what's called flashing. And anyone who's made baits before knows what flashing is. But in case you're new, this is all valuable stuff. All valuable information to know. These clamps right here are from like Lowe's. You can get them from Home Depot. They hardly cost a thing, and they clamp really, really well. So for a stack of molds like this, I want to use 2 clamps. You could probably get away with 1, but I'm clamping both sides of the mold. And that's really, really important in injection. In hand pouring, let's say you have a 2-piece hand pour mold, you don't need to clamp it all that tight. It just needs to be shut. And if it's a 1-piece mold, obviously there's no clamping needed. But in injection, to prevent flashing is to invite success into your bait shop. So whenever you're starting out and you want to build that first color, I recommend buying colorants that are for a specific purpose. So for example, buy a bottle of green pumpkin, buy a bottle of watermelon, buy a bottle of black grape or June bug, get you a bottle of chartreuse, get some white pearl. Colors that are for specific colors. You know that bottle of green pumpkin is going to give you a green pumpkin. And what I like to do is, per measuring cup of plastic, a good place to start with most colorants. I would say MF colorants are the thinnest. They require the most drops to get to a certain opaqueness. Lureworks and Dead On are a little more equal. I think Dead On plastic colorants are a little more concentrated, but a good happy medium here is Lureworks. So what I like to do is do 40 drops, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, that's about 40 drops, maybe a drop or two on either side. So about 40 drops per measuring cup of plastic does a plastic good, okay? That's a good way to start learning formulas. Okay, and so what we're making here today is just a June bug. This is your run-of-the-mill, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill, but this is just a good June bug here. Some Lureworks black grape, okay? And then we're just going to add some green flake to it. And for glitter, I like a little, there it is, 1/4 teaspoon scooper, okay? I know that a full 1/4 teaspoon is not too much glitter. It's not too little, it's not too much. That right there, just that, will make a killer June bug, okay? Let's bring it up here a little bit closer. There you go. Okay? And then you can build your colors from there. And eventually, once you do this enough, you may not even really use formulas. It's just kind of all muscle memory. I'm going to squirt some in there, and I kind of know when and where to stop. But if you're just starting out, I think it's important to start with formulas first, okay? And then our next, necessarily the next step is then you could go ahead and shoot your mold, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and shoot some baits, and then we're going to talk about reheating this, because we want to keep reheating to try to use all of our plastic. Again, you want to be as efficient as possible because you want to save materials, because that saves you money. Okay, and now we're going to inject our baits. Obviously, if you've watched my videos, you kind of know how the injection process works. You take a hand injector, you draw up your plastic. I actually probably don't have enough plastic for all three of these molds. This is the Angling AI Stinger mold in the 4-inch version. So we'll just do 2 of them to be safe. Okay. Obviously, whenever you inject a mold, you want to hold a little bit of pressure on the injector, and then you want to come back, and you want to top off the sprue. So a mold has a few different parts. The very opening where you put the injector nozzle is called the sprue. So you want to make sure that you top off the sprue so that the cavities and the runner inside the mold have enough hot plastic to draw in, because as the plastic cools, it shrinks. You know how things expand when they're hot, the opposite happens when they cool down, and Plastisol is no different. And just real quick to demonstrate the importance of not overcooking, these 2 swim baits here are poured from the same exact blend of plastic from the same bucket. These are both dead-on plastic swim bait blend. You can see one is extremely clear, looks like an ice sculpture, but this one has a little bit of a yellow tint to it. Now that can be a few things. That can be moisture in the cup. So you can keep your plastic bucket or jug sealed off from moisture, but let's say, you know, most of us leave our cups sitting out in our shop. Well, if you're in a non-climate controlled shop like I am, and it rains that day, well, there's going to be moisture in your shop. Your cups are going to have a little bit of moisture residue on the glass. You know, I mean, just the same way that your vehicle has condensation on the, you know, windshield in the morning. So you want to take a dry cloth or paper towel and wipe down your cups before you put your plastic. So that can be moisture clouding that up. Generally, it means you got it a little too hot. Now, some Plastisols can take a beating as far as heat before they really scorch. But as you can see, they can just kind of slightly cloud up a little bit. Now, this Plastisol is by no means overcooked. It's not scorched. It's certainly not burnt. It's still very good plastic. You can make any color you want with it. But you can see it lost a little bit of clarity. So those are just some things to keep in mind whenever you're, you know, preparing your plastic for each day. All right, so let's take a look at these baits here. Oop, almost dropped everything, huh? Come on, baby. All right. So we all know and love the Angling AI Stinger. Makes an incredible kind of creature bait there. All right. And you can see just a lovely, lovely shade of June bug. So what I like to do, and you know, there again, some of this or a lot of this is repetitive, but I like to immediately place them in some cold water. Now you don't have to put ice cubes in it and make it cold, but the idea is to take what is still a warm bait and set it in water, which is going to help it cure up. Okay, that's the point of the bath. It's just water. It's not magic solution. It's not anything of the sort. I literally go out to my hose and I fill up a piece of Tupperware. So the next step is to reheat this plastic, right? That's not really enough plastic to fill those 2 molds with again. However, we can reheat what's left over in our injector and what we get left of these runners here from the sprue. So we need to open up our injector and take out this plug. Okay. Kind of tear apart. In fact, I need to get this plug back. I like to kind of tear apart these things. That'll just make them melt back down a little easier. And then I like to stir everything up. Okay. There's still a little bit of molten plastic on the bottom. So I want to stir all this mixture back up. That way it heats evenly again. And I use butter knives, so you can see I have this big goop of mess. I'll just kind of scrape that off, okay? Alright, now I virtually have not wasted a single drop of this plastic yet. So now I can put that back in for 45-second increments until it's reheated. And you just want to check your temperature and make sure that you don't get it back above 350. Once you start doing that, you're going to see a degrading of the color and especially the flakes. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this back in the microwave, and we're going to be able to make some more grass grenades here that look just as good. Okay, so here's what it looks like after the first 45-second reheat. You can see it's kind of melted down a little bit more, but it's not quite there. That's a good thing, okay? That means that none of this is getting scorched in the least bit. The colorant is not going to fade. The glitter is not going to fold. Okay, and so now we have our plastic out of the microwave. So what I like to do is just temperature check it real quick, just to make sure that it's not overcooked. So I like to rotate my plastic. That mixes it up. That way I'm not getting just a surface temperature. So 324 degrees, that's a really good temperature to shoot. So when you only have a little bit of plastic left, but I want to make sure that I try and get, or do my best to get both molds, you can angle your cup. And when you angle your cup, when you put your injector in it, you can get more plastic out. Or what you can do is open the injector, and then you can pour that plastic into it to make sure you get all of it. I don't like this method because it opens up the door to spilling. Obviously, you would want to be wearing both gloves and long sleeves. I just don't prefer that method. I like to actually insert my injector into the cup all the way down to the bottom and then draw up from there. Draw up from that corner, okay? You could hear that air bubble. So whenever you hear a little like that, when you get an air bubble, inject even slower. That way that air has time to escape. Even then, I don't think I have enough for both these molds, but worth a shot, right? Nope, don't have enough. Okay. But that's how you try and maximize your chances of having enough. And then again, I want to top off that sprue. Okay. So as you can see, this demonstration has been with just one measuring cup of plastic, and we'll get nine grass grenades, 4-inch beaver style baits. So you can kind of take your experiments, then you can sort of figure out how many baits you can get out of X amount of Plastisol, depending on the size and shape of the bait and the orientation of the mold. And just real quick, I never really talk about this, but I like to keep my work table clean. I like to clean up pretty much after each round of injection. So if I was injecting a lot of molds, as you kind of see, whenever you inject, some plastic spills down the side of the mold. A lot of times it'll get on your table, and you'll just kind of get these little plastic boogers everywhere, essentially. And they can be kind of a pain to clean up. So really, you just, you know, and this goes without saying, I just spray the area with some cleaner and it wipes right off. If you don't use a cleaner, you're basically just going to roll around the pieces of plastic and they're just going to bunch up and they don't really come off. Same with a dirty cup, okay? If we look at this cup, it has some white Plastisol residue in the bottom. That's some of the sticky stuff, okay? That's some leftover plastic. Right? Look how dirty the outside is. Again, a clean cup will assist with clear plastic. You don't want to dump new plastic into a cup full of crap and residue. So, again, just some cleaner. This is some stuff I stole from my wife. You can probably just use Lysol or 409 or whatever. Again, and this stuff is very important. You know, don't overlook this, because you know, especially if you're selling baits, you don't want to sell a white pearl from a cup that had some glitter left in the bottom, and then you have like one random flake of glitter in your white pearl, or if you're shooting something that has clear or white in it, and there's a little bit of plastic residue from when you shot watermelon red, well, you're just going to get these little splotches in your baits, and it's just going to look unprofessional. And just one more point I'll say about the bath. Leave those baits in there for 5 to 15 minutes. Then lay them out flat to dry. Lay them out straight, lay them out flat, depending on the shape of the bait. You know, you can also hang them. But you know, something like this, just lay them out flat to dry. That's it. The water is just to assist in the curing process. This is where, it's going to assist them setting up. This is where they're going to cure, over here. Laid out flat like that. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, we threw it kind of back to the basics. No new colors, no new crazy techniques or new molds or see-through molds or anything like that. But you know, I've been thinking a lot about the questions that I see all the time, and they're from people that really kind of need some of this information. So whether you ask me or ask people on social media forums or just what have you, I think some of these little tips, and not just necessarily tips, but just some things to keep in mind, something to be aware of, and I think there's value to that. You know, some of these things I didn't know when I was starting. You know, I had a little bit of help here and there from some people on some old forums, but you know, a lot of the stuff you just kind of learn it as you go. But as far as mixing up your plastic, making sure it's cooked all the way through the cup, not overheating, things like that are very important, and they can make the difference in a successful trip to your bait shop and a failed trip. You know, there are still days I come out here and I burn my plastic, or I didn't stir it, and so it wasn't cooked all the way through, so then the bottom of the cup is you know, still a little sticky. There are some days I get it too hot and then all my glitter folds up and then the color's ruined. There are days I don't clean my injectors and I get sloppy results because there was still flake or plastic left in my injector which got into the plastic. You know, so these are just some things to keep in mind to try to help you succeed, especially if you're a beginner. But even if you've been doing it a long time, you know, these are still all things that are part of my process. Whenever I'm making lures, I'm consciously thinking about getting that cup stirred up, getting it stirred up all the way in the bucket, making sure it's cooked, not overheating, trying to prevent flashing, making sure my injector's clean. You know, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible so that I don't waste materials. So, with that said, I'm going to sign off. Shoot me some comments down below. Let me know if you have any good little hacks or tips. I certainly don't know them all. I'm just here to tell you what I know. So, with that said, again, we're out of here. Thanks for watching The World's Worst Fishing, and we'll catch you next time.